Chapter 14, Jump-A-Roo and Playing Cards 2. Before I get past this point in my life and into the next, I want to spend a little time on a few things that I feel I may have pushed past. It seems far too easy to get through our day-to-day life and simply not see the life that's all around us. Maybe we do see it, and we just don't know how valuable it is. Imagine if a person had gold and precious jewels all around them every day. They just walk past them, though. To them, they're just ordinary. Maybe they despise the gold because it's heavy, but soft. When they put it near a flame, it just melts away. I mean, how valuable could this stuff be? It melts, and it's just so darn heavy. And these silly jewels are too hard to walk on, so I just throw them out. There should be a nice pile of them just outside my window. An outsider would look at them like they're crazy. Probably take advantage of them, too. They aren't crazy. They just don't see the value of the things that they have all around them, and they consider them a daily nuisance in many ways. If they can't find value in them, they will allow that value to slip away. I wonder if we do the same thing with our daily memories. I hear families share memories when we sit together to plan a funeral and memorial service. Sure, there are times when major events are mentioned. Vacation trips and holiday gatherings are regulars as I meet with families. But by far, the most mentioned stories are those just from our everyday lives. We can look far and wide for things of value, when most of the time, the greatest and most valuable jewels we will ever have are with us each and every day. I see that. I've been very guilty of not seeing it too. I don't want to throw jewels out. In this life I've been given, I don't want to complain about the gold that is all around me. That's not the way I want to live my life. That's not the way I want to spend it. How about you? In the months following Luke's birth, in our little cabin, everything seemed to change. For those of you who have had children, I'm sure you can relate. It changes with each additional child, but the first brings an entirely new world. I'll get into some of the difficulties that came in the next chapter and some of the gold and jewels I refused to look for. Some of the gold I definitely noticed was just coming home in the months that followed Luke's birth. I do vividly remember coming home to Julie and to him. The first few months were a little tougher than those that followed. I did change a diaper or two, but make no mistake about it, Julie did the lion's share of the child care. All three of our children were good babies. By that I mean we didn't have major issues. I think I've heard Julie share that Jack was the one who messed with sleep the most. He had his days and nights mixed up. He was perfectly happy. We were just tired. I don't claim to always have been the one getting up at night. I tried, but Julie was the superstar, and she still is. Just sitting on the couch with her by my side and little Luke jumping on my lap all night long occupied many evenings. If you haven't had a child yet, that setting, well, to you it likely sounds boring. When you tried to have a child and it didn't come easy, and after a very traumatic birth and the fear that it brought, a simple, happy night at home was absolutely awesome and very welcome. Luke was such a happy baby, too. As a matter of fact, he's a very happy man now. Luke has always been such a laid-back guy, even when he was little. There is one particular thing he did that I want to call your attention to. I don't know if these things even exist anymore. It was called a Jump-A-Roo. It was in the title. It clamped above an open doorway with a bungee-like cord hanging down. Attached to the bottom of that bungee was a baby seat. It was adjustable so your child could hang just high enough for their little chubby feet to touch the ground. Yes, their little chubby feet. I have yet to ever see a baby without little chubby feet. They are super cute, and they're right there, and they're super strong. Baby Luke would look at us and smile, his chunky and I do mean chunky, legs would bend just a little, and all of a sudden, that boy would push and bounce, and push and bounce. He would laugh out loud. And the rest of us would laugh right along with him. I know I keep saying this, but writing these memories, well, it makes my eyes get wet. He was so happy, and we were so happy right along with him. When I tell you that God has blessed me way beyond anything I could ever deserve, I mean that. Who on earth could ever deserve such a blessing? My high school sweetheart and love of my life beside me as our first child bounces around and laughs us to tears. Happy, happy tears. Since video cameras were the new craze, we have a couple of those Jump-A-Roo sessions recorded. Oh, those are priceless. It was the three of us in our little cabin, in our little world, in many, many ways. I had gold and precious jewels all around me, each and every day. Goodness. Now, before I move on, I'd like to ask you another question. Have you allowed yourself to go back and look for gold and jewels in your life? I know it can be difficult. Trust me. I just did some of that as I typed that last paragraph. You may feel it's simply too painful to go back. I would disagree. One of the only things people share with me is that they consider regrets in their relationship. Some people feel they messed up or they missed too much. Okay, maybe you did. Does it make today or tomorrow better by avoiding it? I've seen the answer on the faces of people who don't go back. It's not a pretty face. It's a face of disappointment in themselves. If you're disappointed for missing the value back then, please do not double the loss by missing it again today. Please don't. We are all guilty of throwing precious jewels out in the street and complaining about the golden moments of each day. Truly wise people acknowledge the ways they may have failed and change things today. I want to be one of those wise people. Will you join me? Since I'm on a roll with our life in the cabin, I want to give you a deeper look inside. The first thing I want to cover are the years these things took place. I believe that needs to be covered. Why? Well, technology has changed so much, and unless you lived through these times, it seems like I'm making this stuff up. Our little cabin was just outside of town, as I've said. We were just far enough out that we needed an antenna to get any TV. I realize that's not rare to many of you, but some of you probably have no idea what that was like. Yes, we had the antenna turner and everything. With the lower height of our antenna and limited coverage area, we only received 2 channels, and neither of those were very clear. In the mid-90s, the small satellite dishes became popular. Being in the "I think I can do that" category of guys, and that I was, I went down to Best Buy in Evansville, Indiana, and bought a dish system. Do you even have to ask if I tried to set it up myself? Of course I did. Up on the roof I went. Once I had it all bolted on and the cables in place, we needed that signal. Julie watched the screen for a signal percentage, and I adjusted the dish. Oh, you bet we got it done. We had all the TV we ever wanted now. Woohoo! Something became very clear, though. The gold and jewels are rarely found on TV. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Watching a movie or your favorite show with your family or spouse is valuable. I truly believe that, and we have that in our relationship right up to this day. The danger comes when we feel like TV is the entertainment and that is the gold and the jewels. We weren't perfect at seeing that, but we found some value. One of the values we found was on the radio and in playing cards together. It was such a beautiful and simple time. My goodness, how we often miss the best things in life. Julie and I would sit for hours playing cards, listening to the radio, and just being together. Even though I lived it, just typing that out sounds beautiful to me. We have so many memories of those nights, too. May I share a story about one night as we played cards together and listened to the radio? Of course, these were the days long before having any music you want right inside your phone. These were the days of being at the mercy of a DJ and the commercials on the radio program. Everyone had a favorite, and we just learned to like and tolerate the ads. During the day, I always listened to local radio. We have plenty of cassettes and CDs, and there were times it was just easier to turn on the radio and let it roll. We often listened to a country station out of Evansville, Indiana back then. We would sit on the floor with a deck of cards, turn on the radio, and enjoy the evening together. This particular incident happened right before Luke came along. The station we tuned to was a bigger market station. It covered all of southern Indiana and Illinois, along with the western half of Kentucky. With that amount of coverage, they had some impact with their listeners. Through most of the 90s, Garth Brooks was the biggest act going. Getting to one of his concerts was quite an accomplishment. He only toured in the biggest arenas, and phone systems actually shut down from the number of callers trying to get tickets on the day they went on sale. It was quite a time to live in. The station had Garth ticket giveaways as a promotion. The tickets were so valuable, they would take caller 100 most of the time. Trust me, it didn't take long to get 100 calls for those tickets. So, did we ever try to win? Ho, you bet we did. If the DJ came on offering a pair of tickets to caller 100, we'd grab the phone and we tried. Most of the time, it was just a busy signal. We would hang up and try again. Occasionally, it would ring. They would answer and quickly say something like, "Caller 43, try again." It was fun to just get through. You might see what's coming next, though. One night, it finally happened. You bet it did. Caller 100. You have to be kidding me. Garth tickets? No way. They had a bus trip all worked out. We had to get ourselves to Evansville the day of the concert, and they would take us from there. The tickets were only for us. We couldn't pass them along to anyone else. In fact, we didn't even get the tickets. They had them for us. We just had to show up, have proof of our identity, get on the bus. With an event this big, I'm surprised my memory is so vague. I simply cannot remember what it was that got in the way. We knew a couple of weeks before the concert that we wouldn't be able to go. We could have just not showed up and loaded on the bus, but I didn't want those seats left empty. I just called the station and told them we wouldn't be able to go. I gave them permission to give our Garth tickets to someone else. It was the right thing to do, but a difficult call to make. I mean, who turns down Garth tickets? When I called the station, I remember the person on the other end saying, "Are you sure?" They said it more than once. It was a lesson in life, and I lived it. Have I ever had the opportunity to see Garth since that time in our lives? Well, you'll have to wait until later in this book for that answer. I wanted to offer a chapter from this time in my life about some of the everyday blessings that were all around me, the daily gold and jewels we all have around us. I wanted to do it to shed some light on the everyday blessings we often have around us but simply don't see. Maybe you see them. Maybe you take them for granted. Looking back, I believe I knew how blessed I was. From my days doing work I loved to nights with people I loved more than I realized, it was a very special time in my life. I also wanted to share things because this is the last chapter in Part 3. Part 4 will cover a time in my life when the challenges of this world, well, they kind of consume me. Yes, it will be very troubling. It will be hard to read those chapters. Since I'm writing this story after those years, it's obvious that I made it through those tough times. But I did not choose the easy path. Maybe you see that theme. Some of those trials are often the reason I finally took Julie's advice to write this book. I've been through a thing or two. and hope that by sharing, someone else may be helped as well. Trust me, it would be much easier and more private to keep these things inside. The fact was, some seeds had already been planted. I've already told you this story of the scales telling me I was heavier than I liked. It laid the groundwork for a total turnover that was coming my way when Pineco and Green Thumb were lost. Not only were those things lost in my day-to-day life, my sense of identity, well, it wasn't far behind. Red was still a big part of everything I did. As I previously mentioned, black was worse, so my hope of a life without red, well, that was gone. I can honestly tell you, red was never a factor when I was home. Julie and I could spend hour after hour together in our cabin with baby Luke, and red would never cross my mind. I wonder, as I put these thoughts and feelings out there, if any of this will come as a surprise to my family and close friends. You see, red never came up in conversation, and I never brought it up. Years later, it did come up a time or two, and I was quite surprised that my family had no idea how much it bothered me. They didn't see the looks that I saw. They were unaware of the changes that red brought to my world. They didn't see red at all, so there was nothing to be aware of for them. I certainly don't blame them in any way. It had an incredible impact in my life, though. I believe living with red has made me very sensitive to what other people are going through and experiencing. No one else will likely notice, but I do. I believe it can be quite obvious if we just take the time to notice. If we take the time. That's the catch. Will we? It can make all the difference in someone's life by taking the time to pay some attention to them. I know that feeling firsthand. Living with red taught me that and much more. So, it's time for a new chapter. So let's get going.